and I are going on.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz singer Dianne Fraser. We caught up with her about her new 2023 CD, You and I, and her life as a singer. She regularly presents and performs in live Broadway-themed musical events, including many benefit concerts for nonprofit organizations. Along with the music, she is a partner in the management production company, Industry Entertainment Partners, where she represents film and television writers. Prior to joining the industry, she was the vice president of series packaging and TV literacy at ICM. She's got a great story. Enjoy this interview.
Well, hey, before I get into your latest album, You and I'd like to cover what we've lived through for the last 3.5 years or so, getting through a pandemic. And it did its own thing on everyone, and more specifically on artists and musicians. How did you get through that time period, and how did it change you?
I really started working on the album during the pandemic. I have another career. I am a partner in a management company in Los Angeles, and I represent film and television writers. So that's my primary career, which slowed down a lot during the pandemic. It didn't slow down completely, but I was still working during that time, and I had been doing a lot of live shows, mostly a lineup show where we had a lot of singers in an evening at a club in LA that's since closed called Rockwell Table and Stage, and the show was called An Evening of Classic Broadway. And we started doing it in 2014, and we're doing 4 to 6 shows a year, which ended, obviously in 2020 we had a show scheduled that we had to cancel. But I had done a cabaret show, the last writer's strike, 07-08, I worked on a cabaret show, and that was my initial show. And I performed that about 8 times in different venues in LA, San Francisco, Palm Springs. Then I started doing, in addition to my day job, a lot of benefit concerts for the Actors Fund and the Help Group and other nonprofits. And I had always wanted to do a Leslie Brickish show as a follow-up to my first cabaret show. And I started working on the songs and got, maybe 32 songs that I wanted to sing. And then I got busy with other things, so never got back to it. Then during the pandemic, I thought maybe this is an album. So I contacted my music director who had worked with me on the Brickish material, Todd Schroeder, and he thought that was a great idea. So we worked over Zoom for about at least a year and a half, paring down the list of songs. He wrote arrangements, and we worked on it that way. Then we got into the recording studio when people were out and about again. This is the first album I've recorded, and I wasn't actually sure if I'd ever get it done. It was like, yeah, this is, at some point I'll do it. And then this year, May 2nd, a writer's strike hit again. And I know, it's the third strike that I've been through in my career in the entertainment industry. So I thought this could be 5 or 6 months, which it was. And so I said to Todd, let's get it done. So he mastered the songs. I had photos taken, album artwork. I had various singer friends helping me navigate the world of CD Baby and uploading your music. And I got signed to the Blue Jazz record label, and then decided to book 2 live shows as sort of CD release shows. So I did one November 15th at the Catalina Jazz Club here in LA, and then last week at Don't Tell Mama in New York. And the album was released December 1st. So I'm very proud of the work we did on the album. The arrangements are great. My sister's the drummer on the album, and she did the live shows as well. And this is just music that I have loved my entire life. And what I have come to realize, especially doing the live shows, is that not enough people are aware of Leslie Bricusse. People think Michael Bublé wrote Feeling Good, and Sammy Davis Jr. wrote What Kind of Fool Am I? You know, I mean, it's, and seriously, I have discovered, it was sort of a running joke in the patter in the live show about how people think Leslie Bricusse was a woman and that they don't know all the things he did. So I feel like what started as sort of a little bit of a vanity project for me has turned into a nice tribute for Leslie Bricusse.
So let me ask you this. I'm curious, you know, getting this album out, what kind of relief is it to have this out after such a long time? You know, to be able to perform live, just getting out of the pandemic. Is there a level of relief with this release?
Yeah, I think so, because it was, you know, I mean, it's sort of, I have to say I have mixed feelings, because we worked on it for a long time, and as long as you're working on it, it's still a project you're working on, and it's a goal that you're aiming toward. Now that the album's released and I've done the live shows, it's a relief, but it's also like, oh, I wish I was still working on it. But I think I'm going to arrange for some other dates at different places for the show, because it was very well received. It's funny. I didn't think we would infuse as much humor into it. And so many people just came up to me and said, If I Ruled the World, that's my favorite Tony Bennett song. I didn't know he wrote that. And it's just uncanny to me that people don't know who he was. And it's funny because he died in October of 2021, so still in the pandemic mode. And when I heard that he had died, I thought, oh, great, now every cabaret singer in the world is going to do a Leslie Bricusse show, a Leslie Bricusse album. And nothing happened after that. No, I wasn't aware of anyone doing it. And even the guy I'm working with at the Blue Jazz record label said, this idea is genius. No one has recorded his songs like this. Meanwhile, Sondheim dies the next month, and everywhere you go, Sondheim, you know, so it was kind of funny. But yeah, I think that there will be life beyond just this release and the two shows I've done so far.
So how did this jazz music journey begin for you? Take me back to where you were born and raised, and how did it begin?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lifelong pursuit of mine. I grew up not far from where I live now in North Hollywood, California, and probably from the age of 4 years old, I wanted to be a Broadway star. That is what I loved. I think I was, you know, born too late. I loved, you know, Andy Williams and Petula Clark and all these older singers. And when I saw the movie Goodbye, Mr. Chips, that was when I really became aware of Leslie Bricusse, and I saw the movie because I love Petula Clark. But the music was just spectacular, and I loved it. And then, but mostly that was my goal, was to be, you know, move to New York and be on Broadway, which I did, but mostly I was a waitress when I was in New York. And then I needed a real job. I produced a couple of musicals that didn't make money, and I moved back to LA in with my parents, and I needed a regular job, and by a fluke, I got a job at a production company as an assistant. And then from there, I became an agent, and I was an agent for many years. I was a partner in a small literary agency. Then I went to ICM, in TV series packaging and TV literary, and then from there became a manager. And as a manager, I have had many producing projects, some that I have currently, and, you know, represent film and TV writers, which I've been doing, you know, for a very long time. And I love my work. I love the people I work with, my company, my clients, and I will do this forever because it also finances my musical pursuits. But I got back, I hadn't done any performing for a long period of time. I had kids and a big job. And then at one point, I did a fundraiser for my daughter's school for their musical theater program, and they were doing Oklahoma as their spring musical, and they had no money in the budget. So I said, well, let me do a little concert at my house. And by this point, I had done my cabaret show, and I was getting to know a lot of the LA singers, many of whom are displaced New Yorkers who have been on Broadway and national tour and all of that. And so we had maybe 10 singers, 3 different piano players, and we did this Rodgers and Hammerstein show in my house. And I was high for a week. It was such an exhilarating experience. And I only sang a duet in that show. I wasn't even front and center as a performer, but it gave me such satisfaction, and especially because the audience was so appreciative, and we raised money for the school and all of that. And so then the next year we moved to a bigger venue, and we continued while my daughter was at that school to do those fundraisers. And that led to doing concerts for another nonprofit, and then the classic Broadway show that I was talking about. We started doing that, and I was doing benefits, a yearly multi-night benefit for the Actors Fund for many years, and then all the while, like, you know, always singing in these shows also, and just continuing, you know, to work as a singer with the ultimate goal. You know, I do love to perform. It's not something, I don't think now, oh, I'm going to quit my job and move to New York and try to be on Broadway. It's more, you know, I just look at it like, I always say I don't do extreme sports, but if I were a skier, I'm sure that's how it would feel to be on the mountain. I do it for the adrenaline rush and the exhilarating experience, and also what we do for audiences. That when we were doing an evening of classic Broadway, there were so many nights that people would come up to us crying practically, saying, oh my God, I haven't heard that song in so long, this is so great. And I realized, you know, that what started out as, oh, something for me to have an outlet to be able to sing, it was really so important for these audiences, and they loved it so much. And that's how I have sort of felt about this Brickus show, that in some ways it started out as like a vanity project for me to sing music that I love and record an album. But just the reactions, especially at the live shows, as I was saying, with people being introduced to him, learning about who he was and all the hits he had and the success he had, and they didn't even know it. You know, I mean, Willy Wonka is opening tomorrow, the new movie with Timothée Chalamet, and, you know, it's gotten some good reviews and everything, but people don't associate that with I mean, yes, they know there was a movie with Gene Wilder, but they don't think, oh, those songs are by Brickus and Newley. You know, Pure Imagination, big, big song that everyone knows, but no one knows who wrote it. You know, it's just uncanny.
So what was the first live jazz show you ever saw that blew you away?
The first what?
The first live jazz show you ever saw in person that blew you away?
That's a good question. I don't remember, actually, that blew me away. I mean, I can tell you one. I'm not going to tell you who the performers were, but leading into my working on my first cabaret show, I was in New York for some business on a musical I was producing, and I went to a show at the Metropolitan Room, and I think it was a Monday or a Tuesday night, and they were, you know, 3/4 of the way full, and it was 2 like glorious singers with Broadway credits, a man and a woman. And I was bored by the second song because they didn't interpret a lyric. They sang, but I could have listened to a recording. And at that point, I said, I'm doing a cabaret show. This is ridiculous. I can do this. And I made a list of 37 Stephen Schwartz songs that I wanted to sing. I've worked with Stephen twice on 2 different of his older musicals. And so I was going to do this Stephen Schwartz song, and on the plane back to LA, I made all this big list and started thinking about it. because I realized, then I started going through a lot of cabaret shows, more than jazz per se. It was more the cabaret world where, you appreciate a performer telling stories and telling you why they're singing these songs, why these songs mean something to them. And that's kind of the cabaret art form. As far as jazz, I remember that when I once did probably Barbara Morrison would be the person that blew me away. She actually sang in a couple of our Actors Fund benefits years ago, and she was just incredible.
So what is it that you like the best about being a singer? What is it that you look forward to the most?
That's a difficult question to answer. A part of me, I love the live performance experience. As I was saying, there's always sort of this kind of adrenaline rush that you get, and even when things go a little wrong, you manage to just keep going and stuff like that. And so I enjoy that. I like being on stage with other people too. In my show, I have, on the album there's a duet, and so I had a male singer in each of the shows singing with me. But I think also there are plenty of times that I am by myself in my house, and I'll even turn on the mics and the sound system and just sing because I love it, and because, when you find songs that speak to you, it's just a warm, fuzzy feeling to sing them,
Absolutely. So why do you love jazz?
I think my dad he loved like big band music and jazz, and I think I got to know it through him, really, and grew to appreciate that style of music, and I think it's sort of a nostalgic thing for me more than anything.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, I think that I'm sort of specific in the type of material that I gravitate toward, and I think I'm a good interpreter of a lyric. The lyrics are always key to me, to be singing about something and not just singing. So I think that's kind of my interpretation of myself. I think that I'm able to move people with conveying, how my connection to the music and bringing them into it so that they can have a similar experience of the music and the lyrics.
So are there any live shows, anything that's coming up on your radar here as we kind of close out this year?
Not the rest of this year. We're, heading into the holidays, and I'm not doing anything for the holidays. I have a couple of things planned for early next year, a benefit that I'm working on with a friend of mine for the Billy Barnes Foundation, and then a show with a piano player, Brad Ellis, and two other performers that we did at a venue a few months ago that we're going to revive in a club here. It was Arlen and Lesser and Stein. It was Harold Arlen, Frank Lesser, and Julie Stein music. And it was, a lot of quartets, duets, trios, et cetera, and solos. And we're going to do that. And at some point, and I will probably book some dates for the You and I, Leslie Bricka show. And at some point, it would be great to get back to the lineup shows because I love doing those. And there are plenty of singers in the LA area who don't get to sing enough anymore. And so they would love to do that kind of show. And we had, jazz singers, Broadway, TV stars, all kinds of people.
Wonderful. So if anyone wants to pick up the new album, You and I, learn more about you, live shows next year, anything in your world, where can they go?
They can go to my website, which is diannefraser.com. Dianne with two N's, Fraser. And the album is I just set up actually a way for people to buy the album itself on Bandcamp, so they can look for me on that site. But at the moment, it's available everywhere as a digital purchase, digital download on Amazon Music, Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, etc. It's available everywhere.
I love it. Dianne, thank you so much for your story, for your time. Best of luck with the album, and have a great holiday season.
You too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest singers and minds in LA, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Dianne for her time, energy, and story. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
That only we can make, you and I.
Neon Jazz.